Hi, this is Bishop, and let me see if I can get this zoomed in enough. Oh, there we go. Very good. Um, I decided to do a special reading. It is February 14th. Not everybody is thinking Valentine's is romance, but I wanted to do a love reading. So I will do these cards, or I will attempt to read these cards with the idea of many loves in mind. So it could be opportunities for self love, other loving relationships in your life, love for your passions, but also, of course, romantic love. So I just sort of got the inspiration to do it. And I have been recently reading Loteria cards. So these are part of like a Mexican bingo game where you get a card to fill in and they call out the cards as they draw them and you see if you get a row and then you win. So what I did was I got these cards some time ago and I couldn't quite figure out how I wanted to use them. I believe anything is an oracle if you read it. If you choose to interpret it, then anything can work as an oracle for you. But I wanted to use these Loteria cards. I fell in love with them. And yet there were cards in the set that I found I didn't want to work with those cards so much. So it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. And what I ended up doing was reducing the deck for divinatory purposes down to 44. So this now has a nice little happy number of 44. And I found that all the meanings that I might have ascribed to the cards I removed, I could develop them from within cards that were still in the deck. So this is going to be a pick a set reading. So I'm going to do, let's see if I get this right. Let's see, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And 1, 2, and 3. And I will try as I do these to get it organized so you can actually see them all. So I read Loteria cards in combination. Like Lenormand or Kipper, I think they would be very difficult to read because there are 44 of them, so there are somewhat fewer. I do read reverses as well, I should say, which gives me 88 options for cards. But when I multiply them times, if I have one card, which is a 1 out of 88 chance, times the next card, which is a 1 out of 87 chance, right? Using one of the cards in upright or reverse, I get like 7,000 to 8,000 possibilities. So it starts to really branch out when you use them in combination and you can really tunnel in on a meaning. So pick one of these piles. I've got this cute little heart sort of taffeta out here, or organza, I guess. And I've got it pinned down with little pink stones from my crystal collection. I've got a beautiful rose quartz candle burning. I mean, I just went for it. Let's talk love of all sorts. So, okay, if you have picked deck pile 1, 2, or 3, I'm going to get to the reading, and these are, of course, general readings, so hopefully you'll have something that is fun or interesting for you, but, we'll see. Okay. La Sirena, La Luna. Oh, wow. Okay. So I got 3 cards in reverse, which means to me, when I get all these cards in reverse, it means there's a certain consistency or an established pattern, perhaps, in the way you're thinking or feeling about something. And it's a pattern that might need to be broken because by the time we've got like 3 reverses, it's like there's no vote, right? It's like it's all no's or all yeses, but it doesn't leave a lot of room for a different interpretation or a different idea. So let's go over what these cards are. La Sirena is the siren or the mermaid. Here, let me hold her up. She's beautiful. This for me is the card that represents the element of water. It is one of the sort of feminine energy yin cards in this deck. And we have another one, La Luna, which is obviously the moon. And then we have El Violoncello. El Violoncello. So it's sort of in between a violin and a cello, but it's a card that I use for arts and sciences, you know, cultivation of skills, but skills that are not just manual skills, skills that require also an educational backup. So if I look at these three together, the first thing I always do is look at these two together. This one modifying this one. So La Sirena in the a classic set of Lenormand meanings. I'm sorry, not Lenormand, Loteria meanings. I found a woman, a Lenormand reader, and I will try to remember to put her link in the description, who had collected the sayings in at least part of Mexico that go with these cards for people who use them for divination. She also noted that they use different sayings or little poems to go with the cards in different parts of Mexico, so your mileage may vary. And I found that as I worked with them, their meanings continued to develop. But it did give me a springboard. It gave me a place to start, because I'm like, is anybody using these for divination? Because when I saw them, I fell in love with them. And so she was one of the few resources I found out there. So I'm actually very grateful that she put this stuff online. So I will try to remember to put her link below. And the reason I'm not mentioning her name is because I don't remember it at the moment. But anyway, I'll get there. So La Sirena can be something that, of course, lures you away, right? That's the idea, that you're lured away or that you're carried away. La Luna can be emotion, but it can also be, as I use it similarly with the Lenormand meaning, the mental realm, and it can be things that you're not sure of, or things that you are casting. The thing is, the moon is changeable. So at one time of the month it's dark, and at one time of the month it's light. So it can be things that cycle and things you're not sure of because you're afraid they're going to change or that they're fickle. But it can be also things that at any given time you feel either very bright about or very dark about, when really the truth is the moon spends most of its time being in between light and dark. And sometimes that's an uncomfortable place to be. So here, when I see these two cards together, I really look at the idea when I'm talking about love that, especially because they were in reverse, right? Someone does not want to get carried away. Someone is very concerned about getting carried away. And when this card is in the reverse, I see the idea of a feeling of a lack of competence. Like you don't feel like an expert or a master. And so what that means is that you become afraid to get carried away with the emotions because you're afraid. If you look at her, like she's leading you somewhere far away, and it's going to take you away from something sensible, something nice, something wholesome. You know, there's a sense that there's a little something lunatic about it, something unwholesome, something that's leading you to your doom. If you think of La Sirena not in the cool mermaid way, but a way that she's singing you to your doom. There's really this idea, I think, that you feel like somehow you have to master this or control it, like you have to be the one playing the tune. But I think that at this moment, that is not what the universe is asking of you. The universe is asking you to go with the flow. You know, the moon is causing the tides and the siren rides on the tides. And you're trying to play the instrument, you're trying to mastermind this situation. And it could be that what you need is a little more relaxing, a little more flowing with it. If this has to do with a passion that is not personal, meaning it could be a passion for a skill that you're trying to develop, or let's say it's an area of mastery you're trying to get into. So it could even be something like a new profession, but something that requires education, training, skills. You could be feeling like you're not going to get there. Like you're not going to get there because you're not competent enough. You haven't been consistent enough with your attention, that your feelings about what you wanted, if you desired this thing, have sort of led you astray, and that is concerning to you. But the moon is a cycle, and things come back around. And even the water around the world comes back around. I think the water cycle can return a molecule of water to where it started in about 100 years. So the idea is things come back around. So maybe this was a passion that you had before and you felt like you didn't succeed, or it was a love that you wanted before and you felt like you didn't succeed, you didn't master it, you didn't get to play that fiddle, if you know what I mean. But the chance could be coming back around if you see it, and if you don't see it with such a feeling of suspicion. So I do feel like there's a sense of like trying to relax into things a little bit. If I look at La Luna in a negative sense, because it's upside down, then I could think of it as, fantasy and lack of realism. And this one's facing this way, and La Sirena's facing that way. So it really represents this divided mind, this feeling of confusion. And that confusion will make it hard to play any tune. You won't be able to do anything if you just sit there and worry about always doing the wrong thing. So I think that's kind of the message from pile number 1. So I hope you found that interesting. I think it can apply to a lot of different circumstances, but there really is a call for a little bit of trust and a little bit more maybe self-love, a little more faith in the universal workings, in the cosmic flow, and a little less sense that you need to mastermind the tune. Just pick up the instrument and see what comes. You may not know what beautiful music you can make if you sort of let yourself get into the flow, the creative flow. So, okay, so here's pile number 2. So, card number 1, El Cotoro, the parrot. La mano, and okay. All right, El Pino, the pine. So, for me, the parrot can be a card in its beneficial aspect of entertainment, of conversation, of sociability, but it is a card that repeats what it hears. It doesn't verify things, it just repeats what it hears. So in the sort of negative aspecting, you can think of it as someone who repeats what they hear in a sort of a gossipy way without bothering to verify it, just will spread any sort of scandalous rumor. Like you can think of the parrots who speak profanities because that's what they hear all the time. And there's also the sense that in addition to passing information that you haven't necessarily verified, there's a sense of something that's kind of superficial, and there's a sense of trying to conform with the parrot because you say what everybody else says. So for me, La Mano is a card of a vow. Actually, it's funny, in the Loteria sayings that I got from the woman online, this was a card of lying. And of course, if you hold up your hand and you swear to tell the truth, you may be lying. So for me, it's not a card of automatic lying, but it is a card of vows, of commitments, of, holding up your hand and saying honestly, or I vow to do this for you. That kind of an idea, putting your hand in someone else's hand, or a handshake, a commitment, that kind of an idea. So in the negative aspect, there's a feeling that someone in the situation could be superficial, that there's the idea of a superficial vow. So this could be that you have made a superficial vow towards someone or towards yourself, and maybe you felt kind of pushed into it. The parrot hears something and then it responds. So if we think of a classic situation, someone says, I love you, and then you feel kind of forced to say, I love you back, even if you're not quite there yet, because there's a certain pressure to respond, to conform. So the idea is, if you have been forced into a vow, or you've kind of wanted to press someone else to make a vow, that might not be the way to go for something timeless. The pine tree is my card for the past, but it's also the card of the two trees that I use for things which are mystical and sacred. It's a very spiritual tree. It has a lot of sacred associations. And so the idea, and we can think of like the pine, like the pineal gland. So there's a certain mystical quality and an ability to reach back into the past and to gain wisdom. And because it's evergreen, there's a timeless quality to this. So it makes me think, in terms of a love situation, if it were romantic love, if what you're looking for is something timeless, then, you're looking for something deep, something spiritual, something very meaningful. Then you don't want to be pushed or to push someone else into a superficial declaration. And you also don't want to be in a situation, probably if you're with superficial people and you know that you are surrounded by superficial situations that don't really speak to the truth of your soul or your spirit, that might not be where you want to be. Because I sort of think of these two cards as describing the situation, and then this card is almost like a bit of an advice card, and you'll see that's kind of how I read this one. So the idea is, don't be with superficial people, and also, because this is a vow card next to the parrot, don't be with people who are full of, and don't yourself, we all have to check ourselves, right? Don't be full of cheap talk. Don't swear things you don't mean, because this sort of deep, mystical, timeless aspect will be badly affected, meaning, or you'll be pushing it aside if you go for what is bright and colorful and full of cheap talk, right? So you're not going for the flashy answer. You're going for the timeless answer. You're going for something that feels deep. And if you think of the idea of the pine forest, sometimes this can be deep and kind of quiet, right? There can be this sense that there's this stillness. And this is a card full of chatter, full of promises. So it could be comparing two different people in your life, or it could be comparing approaches that you've taken to relationships. But either way, right now would be a time to avoid cheap declarations on your part or on anyone else's part. The pine doesn't have to tell anybody it's tall and evergreen, because it is. right? There's no need to testify to its nature because its nature is obvious. So the idea is if you're spending a lot of time feeling you have to defend your nature or to make promises about who you are because people are treating you as if you're superficial, as if you can't be believed, then you might want somebody who is a little more accepting, or you need to be a little more accepting of yourself. Yeah, I feel like this is a lot about the idea of honesty and about things which can be trusted are in some ways self-evident because you feel them very deeply. And there really is no amount of chatter or flash or like superficial aspects that are going to change that. Like this person can testify, but I'm an oak tree, but you can see it's a pine. So I don't know, I hope that makes sense, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this one. It's a lot about knowing true, deep spiritual value within yourself and possibly within other situations in your life. So it could be, I mean, heck, this could be about your love for a particular job or enterprise. And one offer comes out, it's really flashy, they're promising everything, and another one looks like it's a better opportunity for the long haul. Well, right now, the long haul is being favored, is being well aspected, and the short term flashy promises, not so much. So think about how this could apply to you. I hope it does. And that is pile number 2. So let's get on to group number 3. We have got La Rosa. I was hoping she would show up. El Diablito. Okay. Haha. And El Alacran. Oh, this is heavy. Okay. Maybe not heavy in a bad way, but this is interesting. So La Rosa is a feminine card, but it's a card that I do use for romance. So these would be romantic offers, like the roses that you give to somebody when you're interested in them. And of course, this is Valentine's Day. So this is El Diablito, which is the little devil. And you can see it's got the pitchfork, it's got like a chicken foot and a cloven hoof, but it's the little devil. So this is not a big, dangerous thing, but this is mischief. This can be troublesome, and this is the scorpion, and the scorpion can be shifty, can be hiding in your boot. It can be something that's hidden deep underneath. And of course, the scorpion can be venomous. So it's a dangerous card, but it's also a card that wants you to get real, like kind of what is worth dying for? Like, is this the hill you want to die on, in that kind of phrase? So here, there's a feeling like you didn't get the offer you wanted. You didn't get the love offer that you wanted, or you didn't get some other offer. You're not feeling like some situation in your life is blossoming the way that you hoped it would. So it can be love a variety of kinds. Like El Diablito can also be a very mischievous and childlike card. So it could be you're not getting the love from your children that you feel like you want. So this could also be you're not getting the love from a person that you want. This could also be that you're not showing the love. Maybe you're El Diablito, and in reverse, it's maybe a little bit more malicious than mischievous. I mean, I sort of feel here with the scorpion, there's the idea of holding a grudge. Like you didn't get something that you wanted, or you're not being offered something that you want. And it's causing you to kind of wear the scorpion as a necklace. It's made you feel bitter and venomous. And it could be that the situation as it unfolded, the person who was involved in it didn't really mean any harm, or they didn't mean to disappoint you, but you're feeling disappointed by it. But if I really read this as an advice card, it could also say if you're not getting the treatment that you deserve in a relationship. And I don't mean that somebody didn't bring you flowers or didn't bring you something, if that would not be expected. Because it might be, sometimes people end up in situations and they place expectations on other people. I expect that you are going to bring me this or bring me that or bring me the other. And they don't tell the other person about that expectation or in any way kind of pave the way for that. And then they end up very disappointed. And the other person didn't mean to disappoint. Didn't even know that that was on the table. Didn't even know that that was an expectation. And especially in the realm of romance, it is very common for us to have expectations for other people, what they should do, or any normal person would know, blah, 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 blah. That's not true. And if you're really having a deep and intimate relationship with someone, you need to find out what their understandings are, or to communicate your own understandings, not go on some generic kind of guideline of what should be expected based on a set of greeting cards or what something is in a magazine. You're not in a relationship with the magazine author or with the greeting card author. You're in a relationship with a person, and treating them like a person rather than a set of expectations, and also not treating them like a vending machine that, like, look, I put the quarters in of my attention to you and now you're supposed to give me this candy bar out. I think it's a better idea to treat people as people, because just like you may have your own checkered history with love, other people may have their own checkered history with it too. And that can create difficulties, right? It can create, unpleasant surprises. Like when the frog is taking the scorpion across the river and the scorpion stings the frog, and the frog's like, but what? I did you a favor. And the scorpion's like, yeah, but it's my nature to sting. So I stung you, even though you did something good for me. I think the idea, if I draw it to Scorpio as well, is to get real about your expectations. And that might mean you want to talk with someone else. And it might be that it might need to be an uncomfortable talk where you're like, you know what? I really expected this and I didn't get it and I feel disappointed, because maybe there was a reason to expect it. And if you feel disappointed, you probably ought to be honest, and you ought to show people your stinger first and let them deal with it rather than being sneaky about it. But it could also be that you really do need to communicate a sense of hurt or disappointment that you feel around some situation, which I feel like someone didn't mean to do you harm. So it could be a child, it could be someone at work. La Rosa does make me think romance first, to be honest, but the idea is they didn't mean to give you the thorns and not the rose, but they did. And now you kind of need to be honest about it. You don't want to be treacherous about it. You don't want to be secretive. You don't want to hold a grudge about it. You just want to express the way you feel honestly and kind of see how that goes. I mean, this one's a little more fraught than the other ones, but you know what? Sometimes it is what it is, and the scorpion is usually an idea that you need to come clean. And it's the idea, if you've ever been in the desert and you've seen a scorpion, if you see it, you can avoid it. If you can't see it, if it's hiding in the bottom of your boot, you may not be able to avoid it. So the idea is that we can avoid the trouble that we can see. So if you have feelings of disappointment, it might be a good time to bring those out. And if I look at this, rather than do mischief, you might want to bring them out. And let's say you're dealing with issues that you've had love problems in the past. So maybe this isn't a current relationship, but it's a relationship, you're thinking about love relationships. You need to come clean with yourself. You need to, what we might say, purge the poison out of your system. If you're still carrying old baggage that treats someone you were involved with like a devil, like the villain in the picture, and it's meaning, that sort of feeling towards this person is meaning that you can't really open your heart again, and you're not really feeling open to love, or that you can offer love to someone, then this might be a great time to purge the poison from your system, you could say, with some journaling, with some self-care, with some self-love, because the idea is you want to be able to offer love. You want to be able to be open to love that comes your way in all the different forms it comes. The warm sun on a perfect temperature day playing over your skin feels like love. And you want to notice that, because you don't want to be stuck in your own disappointment, poisonous thoughts, past pain. That means that all the different ways you can be enjoying the world and enjoying moments of transcendence and bliss and elevation and happiness, that those are all passing you by because you're stuck in kind of a poisonous cycle of thinking. So do not wear the scorpion as a necklace. Feel free to see it and steer around it or shoo it somewhere else. Scorpions, most of them aren't that huge. They're not that hard to avoid if you know that they're there. So this might be a good time to explore that as well. So anyway, I hope you found this Loteria reading interesting and fun, and maybe even applicable. I am very happy to get your comments below about what you thought about it, and also just how things are going. I very much appreciate your subscriptions and you're hitting the like button. It's really, I don't know, it's pretty cool. So until next time, do my lovelies, because I adore you, even on days when you don't adore yourself. The universe finds you marvelous and wonderful and adorable.